We just roll.
Okay, how you doing?
Kara, good.
Welcome to London.
Thank you. It's amazing to meet you again.
Yeah, you too.
We haven't. When did we meet last time? Last year in London.
I think it was June. I was brunette, right? So I just got brunette. So it's like before or after brunette. You know, it's like when was it? It was after brunette.
I still remember you blonde.
Yeah, I know. Everyone does. My friends still I go to meet them at the pub and they're like, "Where are you?" But yeah, I'm loving the brunette.
No, cool.
Yeah.
So you built your own business since we last time met. Tell me all about it. So what's the business about? What's behind the business? What's the idea?
Yeah, so I'm building a little business called Design 4. Well, hopefully will be big. And I guess Design 4 exists to create experiences that provide real value for humans and drive commercial growth. That's why I started it. It's designed for business, designed for humans, designed for society, designed for growth, but ultimately designed for the future. Like, how do we create the future that we want to live in, whether we're a bank or a not-for-profit or a healthcare organisation? And it's founded on sort of human-centred design principles, but also bringing that commercial lens and that commercial angle, because I believe, I guess, in the work that I've done over the last 16 years, that you have to have that commercial angle to have impact. It can't be kind of one or the other. I really believe it has to be both to drive impact no matter what sector you're working in. So that's why Design 4 exists. That's the ethos, that's the meaning behind it, and that's really kind of what gets me out of bed every day to sort of try and design better experiences to help people.
So it's really combining all the things that you have done over the last decade into your own thing now.
It is. It's terrifying.
Amazing.
But exciting. Finally. Yeah.
Like we said, like 6 or 7 years ago, I was saying it already to you, you should build your own business, and finally you did it.
Finally, I know. I still remember Jens, and I probably still have it in like my box of, you know me, I've like moved internationally so many times, but we did this big mapping exercise, right, about like what's important to me and what I want to do next. And I'd just come out of a really big, important role that was so much of my identity was wrapped up in that. And we did this big mapping exercise and everything was pointing towards this. And then I went and did something else, right? I went back to the agency but I feel like those sessions that we had together were really like foundational to kind of this. And I guess, just even though it's been a long time, I had like a big 6 years in my career, then working in top tier consulting, I kind of always had you at the back of my head as like a cheerleader. Like literally, seriously, I always knew you were there kind of sort of ready to cheer me on doing this. And yeah, it's meant a lot, that kind of support from afar. So thanks, Jens.
You're welcome. Now, the cool thing about this is, because I think right now the time is so ripe for this, if you look in all the big changes that are happening right now, obviously we have the wars that are happening right now. We are recording this in 2026 in March. But even more so if you look into the technology development, everything when you look into organization need to be redesigned somehow. Because
100%. It's
changing so much. And then having the experience that you have from working with international clients from big to small over in different cultures, in different contexts, in different industries, that's a backbone that you have that you can utilize for everyone.
100%. And I think this is I think what sort of gave me the confidence in the end to go for it, is that, nobody can sort of take away that experience, right? Like I've done it. I've worked in 42 countries on different projects. I've lived in 5 countries, right? Kind of working in all different levels of business. And I think I sort of got to a point where I feel like I can deliver more value for my clients and for their end users doing Design 4 and kind of working through that business model. And already in the kind of short time I've been doing it, just being able to give my 100% focus to the challenges that they have. And there's some big challenges around clinical trials and climate change and, how do we get aid to people in the middle? They're big, juicy challenges. I already just feel like I can unlock my brain and experience in such a more meaningful way for those organizations and people who work in those organizations. So it's been super rewarding already.
Yeah. So if we look into organizations that could need your help, what are the problems that you are solving and for whom are you solving those problems?
It's such a good question. Look, I've worked in every sector, and I really am a big believer that we have to make the world a better place and change the world, one experience at a time. Whether that's someone trying to get a mortgage to buy a house, or an old lady trying to get on a British Airways flight, or someone who's got terminal cancer trying to get on a clinical trial. I just believe that we have to make these experiences better. So it's all businesses of all shapes and sizes. Obviously, as you know, my heart is really in healthcare. Most of my experience is in healthcare, and I always return to healthcare. And that's really from a very personal experience I went through losing my dad in 2014. And, I was like a baby experience designer at the time, doing some really interesting work for airlines and banks and logistics companies. And I went through this experience when my dad died very suddenly in hospital, and I was kind of like, hang on a minute, like no one's thought about the human experience here. Yeah. This is broken. A series of events kind of happened that day that I was just like, and obviously the shock and the grief. And I went to my CEO at the time and just was sort of like, all this amazing experience design, creative, digital work we're doing for our corporate clients, we have to do this in healthcare,
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, go and write me a business case and win me a client. And this is like, I had no idea how to do that back then. I went back to my desk and remember Googling like how to win a client at a digital agency.
That was before AI.
It was way before AI. It was way before anything, right? And I don't know, I think like I just, I have a lot of tenacity. I have a lot of grit. I think it was through that and probably a bit of luck that we did win this really big program of work with a big hospital in Australia. It was about helping chronically ill teenagers transition from pediatric care into adult care. And it just kind of went from there. I ended up running a part of the agency focused on healthcare work. Then I ended up running a part of the agency. So we sort of said, okay, well, if we can use this problem-solving approach to solve problems in healthcare, problem-solving approach being human-centered design, how can we use it to solve other social impact challenges we have against violence against women and climate change and diversity? And we scaled up that offering to be centered around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And then I rolled it out globally with Dentsu, and it just kind of went from there. But I guess my passion really always comes back to healthcare, because I think that it is the one thing that really unites us as people on this planet, is that we deserve better access to better healthcare. I don't think I speak to anyone who hasn't had a broken healthcare experience, and it's kind of the biggest, lowest hanging fruit in my eyes.
Yeah. If we double click on the human-centered design, because it's kind of a buzzword still, and a lot of people, from my experience, still don't understand it. How would you define that in the work that you do?
I think it's designing for humans with humans, and there's a series of principles that embody human-centered design. So it's human-centered, so we get and we work with the people that we're designing it for. So if we think about healthcare, that's not only patients, or, I don't really like calling them patients, but it's, people, carers, healthcare professionals. And then, if we look at a sector like pharma, there's a whole bunch of other people involved in that, kind of payers, buyers, regulators, right? So it's all the people. So that's the first sort of principle of human-centered design. The second principle is human-centered design is holistic. We're not looking at, the consent form when you go to the doctor. We're looking at every single element of that experience, kind of leading up to that moment that you go and see a doctor, everything sort of surrounding that. So it's the design of, yes, a single touch point, but also that kind of ecosystem where that problem occurs. And so a term like service design, for example, is a good way to kind of demonstrate how human-centered design needs to be holistic. We need to design for the human, and then we sort of go behind the scenes and look at process, tech, people, and what's happening that needs to kind of support those experiences. The third principle of human-centered design is that it's iterative. It's not kind of set and forget. It's not like, oh, yeah, cool, now we've designed that app and everyone can go and enjoy good healthcare or whatever it is, get on their flight in an okay way. It's iterative. It's sort of constantly checking in because, and I'm going to come back to this because I think that this is one of the reasons why it's so exciting to be a human-centered designer at the moment, because our behavior in the last 12 months has just totally changed because of AI. So it's iterative. human-centered design is also tangible. So we make things. We don't just make PowerPoint slides. I mean, I do make a lot of PowerPoint slides, but it's making prototypes and mocking things up and designing things with people. And then the last one is that it's co-creative. And that's a little bit different to sort of it being human-centered in that you create it with the stakeholders who are involved. And that's a really important part. And I think that's a big part that people get wrong, and people think that co-design or co-creation is just chucking a bunch of people in a room together and doing a workshop for 2 hours. Like, that's not good co-design, So I guess those are the principles of human-centered design. And then, of course, for everyone who loves the process, which everyone does, a nice linear, clear process, there is a little bit of a process that we go through. I guess I really love what's called the double diamond process, which was coined by the UK Design Council in 1982. So it's pretty old, or older than me anyway. Maybe not as old as you, Jens. And that's sort of, discover, define, design, deliver. But the reason why I love that linear way of doing it is it has 2 diamonds attached to it, and the diamonds are about your mindset during that process. So discovery is that first opening of the diamond where we think really broad and without any restrictions and like a beginner. And then we start to make sense of that, right? And then we get to the other diamond. And this is my favorite part of the design process, is we go broad again. And this is where innovation happens, right? In this part of the diamond where we go blue sky thinking anything's possible. And then as we come to the end of that second diamond, that's where we go, okay, well, how do we make this real? How do we kind of make this profitable? How do we build revenue off of this product or service or whatever?
The key part of that, what I have experienced myself being in large organization, is that you have someone who guides you through that. Because I think the part of the co-design, what I have experienced, you need to have someone who has done it a couple of times, who is an expert in this, and who as well takes the team outside of their comfort zone in between, and then looking into whom else do we need to involve in all of this, not just, let's bring a couple of customers in and then we talk to them. It's really looking into what are the ripple effects in an organization and why are things not implemented after. Because that's, I think, one of the things that I see always where organizations at least are a little bit scared about, and maybe scared is not the right word, but it's more they're not investing into this kind of things because they don't see the outcome straight away. But I think it's also looping that back to what you said is the behavior changes that need to happen in an organization now coming even more so. But you need to enable an organization as well to get into that direction, and then using a professional like yourself, then driving these changes in the organization so that it's really happening.
100%. I'll give you probably what I think is a good example of co-design, right? We did some co-design workshops. We did, of course. That's the fun stuff. But I was doing some work for a big pharmaceutical company, and we were looking at creating a patient experience framework for their R&D part of the business. R&D is research and development, clinical trials, right? Attached to that were providing some outcomes for some clinical trials that they had sort of coming up. And so we were like, right, so obviously clinical trials, lots of different people. If we think about co-design, we've got kind of the regulators, we've got the scientists who are kind of, need to ensure that the drug is going to work. And then, of course, we have patients, we have HCPs, we have the sites, like the hospitals where the clinical trials are going to take place. So we formed a program of work where we had sort of all of those people involved throughout the program of work. And obviously at the start, it's kind of like, what are the outcomes we need to achieve? What are those numbers we need to achieve? And again, bringing that design for humans and commercial growth, a lot of it was around like, how can we save the money on the clinical trial, right? Because if they don't get people to go on the trial, or if people drop out while they're on the trial or have a bad experience, then they can't get the drug to market and they can't sell and they can't make money. That is the business model of pharmaceutical companies, right? I mean, from my angle, what really motivates me is getting that medicine to people who need it, right? And I think poor pharma companies get a bit of a bad rap, but like ultimately that's what they do. You know what I mean? I'm sure that if you were sick or your wife was sick, that you would want to make sure that you could have access to this new medicine, right? So in this co-design instance, we had like very early on patients involved in like our steering committee. That was very uncomfortable for the organization to kind of have someone be sitting with the executive team, like have a patient be sitting with the executive team. So that brings a certain amount of insight, right, that individual. But there's also a bit of bias to that type of insight in that setting. So how else can we get that insight? We did some research. We went out and we spent time with patients in Japan and India and Argentina and all different countries. Then we did some co-creation, and the co-creation was really a lot around having some of those other players in the ecosystem, like the regulators, like the clinicians and team who designed that study, kind of be in the room with patients and hear things from their point of view, right?
Yeah.
And when co-design sessions are planned well and run well by a professional like me, or there's a lot of people who work in this space, they're very effective because within a short amount of time, you can make good decisions and design good products and services because, the patient might have a certain point of view, but then we know from the clinician who's there in the room with us that, we can't do that because of X, Y, Z. So rather than sort of going to the patient and then going to that, and then sort of doing that. And in some situations, that's a better way of working, but good co-design when it's planned and there's some other events and sequences around that sort of have that outcome.
Yeah. The interesting pure business set now, again, in the end, it's cheaper if you do it well because you're reducing the time, you're reducing the failure rate, and in the end, you have a faster go-to-market.
100%. And that's like usually the conversation I'm having. And sometimes I get a bit caught out because you know me, like I'm a massive empath. This is what gets me going is to help people, right? But throughout my career, I've kind of learnt the hard way that not everyone is wired like that, and businesses certainly are. And I need to kind of, change that conversation. That's part of my work. That's what I help clients do is okay, well, let's what is that conversation we're having in the boardroom with the CEO, right? Because chances are, of course they're caring and of course they want to get drugs and medicines to people who need it most, but these are multi-billion-dollar clinical trials, right? So how do we ensure that, we're not going to be wasting any money, there's not going to be dropouts, because that's what gets really expensive on a clinical trial. Is not only you've recruited the person and they're on it, then they drop out, you can't use any of their data, you can't use anything, right? Yeah. But then at the same time, all these clinicians, and obviously they're doing incredible work, they're making silly decisions like that a patient needs to come into a hospital and get blood taken 24 times within a month, And this is again why I find clinical trials so interesting because, of course, it's about the science and about if the drug works, but I think people get so caught up with the science that they forget about the common sense of the human side of it, right? You know, and so a lot of the decisions we made were maybe let's not do 24 blood draws that month, maybe let's only do 6. And when they come in to do those blood draws, let's chat to them about their symptoms and let's do this and let's do that. And let's give them a pack that they can take home and talk to their kids about the treatment that they're having. Nice, clear brochure, Simple stuff, And guess what? That person, all the studies that we did for that particular instance, more likely to stay on the trial, not only stay on the trial, but adhere to the things that they're meant to do. And so the money that saves that business in the end. So, very interesting.
Yeah. Going from business case to the thing that you already touched on, behavior change. Provocative. AI will disrupt every single business in the world.
Yeah.
I think in the next 12 months.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah.
So how can the approach of co-design, how can the work that you do and you did over the last decade help organizations to go through this? Because we are all not used to this fast changes and dramatically changing. If we just look into what AI can do already today, if we just look into the last 3 months, almost all administrative tasks that are digital can be done by an AI, and you don't need a person at all in this.
Yeah.
So that means an organization has maybe 60, 70, 80, depends on the company, less need of humans. And how do we deal with that?
Maybe let me come back to that question. Maybe let me talk to you. I'm a bit distracted with I guess, I'm really excited about AI for lots of reasons. I think at the moment what I'm finding in my business and kind of driving design for is I've had so many people come to me being like, oh my God, we've been so focused on people losing jobs and our AI strategy that we don't really know who our customers are anymore. You know, we don't really know who our patients are anymore. We don't really know who these individuals who run these clinical trials in the sites are. We don't know what they're doing, what technology they're interacting with. So I think people have been, rightly so distracted with it that they've kind of lost sight of what's happening with the people. Employees are part of that. At the same time, while everyone's been very distracted by AI, like our behavior has changed, you know? Like I'll give you a really small example. I was like a real set and forget girl with all my bills and finances and stuff, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I didn't really care if I was paying an extra £10 a month. Like it's done, it's sorted. I'm a busy entrepreneur. I'm not, you know, going to be sitting around shopping around for octopus energy versus whatever. Now I do, you know? So within the course of my adult life, it's a whole bunch of things that, and everyone's the same, right? Everyone's got these examples of things that they have changed. And so it is this super exciting time for businesses who need to kind of get back on the straight and narrow and look at their customers and what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, how could another electricity company pick me up at the moment? You know what I mean? So it's this wild time where people are changing behavior. That is such a big opportunity for businesses.
Yeah, I agree.
And so so that's kind of, I think, the first part of excitement from a human-centered design point of view is like, and AI to me is, it's a technology, right? So throughout my career, you know, we've always designed for the human first, and then what technology can enable that experience to happen, right? So then for me, it's like this new vehicle of experiences that we can deliver for people. I think the other like very tangible thing then when we get to co-design is we can make and test things quicker than we've ever been able to before.
Yeah, hugely.
You know?
Yeah.
Like within a co-design session, we could make 5 websites if we wanted to and actually really mock it up end to end. So I think that kind of testing of ideas is so exciting. So I think the businesses don't really have any excuses anymore in terms of like, how do we reach our customers? So it's about like, getting to know them, understanding what their needs are, and then testing things with, co-creating things with them, testing things with them. It's such an exciting time to be an experience designer. Anyone out there who says like the design process is dead, I don't know what they're doing.
No, I agree. I think it's, what is interesting, when I worked in big design company in the past, before we met, one of the things that I learned is in the end, how do you ask questions?
Yeah.
And that's what it is all about. You just need to ask different questions and then utilize AI as much as you can, and then find out how can you solve the problem. And you have now super intelligence that you can ask questions. So why not utilizing it and then figuring out what is, and then looking into the behaviors and looking into, so if this happens, what is then changing with that behavior?
Do you think, I've got a question for you now, do you think, so in terms of that, like, so as you know, like one of the like techniques with human-centered design is kind of really getting to the root cause of like the thoughts, feelings, behaviors, motivations, right? And so we use like the 5 why technique and stuff like that, like why, why. So you can design to the root cause, right? Do you think that AI agents and bots and tools have that sophistication of critical thinking?
I think so. There's the possibility. Obviously, depends on the model and depends how far it goes. In the end, yes. But I think what it's never going to have is this human element, and that's I think where we can combine it, because like we are sitting now together is different than you talking to ChatGPT or any of the other models.
Yeah.
And even that ChatGPT could ask you all the questions, the human connection, the body language, and you see the things in between will be always different if you do that human to human. And I think that's the opportunity that we have. We can transcribe conversations and then take out the knowledge of the conversation and then add the human element to it.
100%. And that's right. Those tools are just accelerating
Exactly.
how we can get that insight into action quicker, right?
Exactly.
And like, I mean, you know, back in my, like when I first started, again, when I was a baby experience designer, like we used to go out in the field and like watch people and talk to them and write up all the notes and like go through the notes with highlighters and post-it notes and stuff like that. Now I can just run it all through a tool, right? You know, so I think the other kind of interesting part of AI in the sort of human-centered design world at the moment is this concept of synthetic data and like synthetic personas. And so what that is, I'm sure you know all about it, but it's kind of where we use a little bit of real insight, a little bit of real data to kind of mock up potential futures, potential scenarios and things like that. And I don't think that world is particularly sophisticated at the moment, but I think it's so interesting. I'm speaking to a client at the moment who is quite brave and kind of wants to do some work in that space, because it's kind of like, okay, so we can design to right now to what we know about people and how they're behaving and how they're using this product or service, but like, what are your customers going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah,
you know, and
100%.
how do you future-proof your business? And I think that type of modeling with synthetic data and trend analysis, again, we used to do it in like an old school way, scroll Google and make different kind of models and stuff like that. Like that's kind of accelerated, and I think that's quite exciting again from a human-centered design world. Again, that particular client's like, oh, but you know, is this going to replace like, you know, people, and how do we really know? And I'm like, no, we're still going out and speaking to your customers now. We've got to build those models based on insight today, right? And I think that's the other part. Another thing I'm talking to that particular business about is how do we take all that, like going out and speaking to your customers, mapping them out with some personas and journey maps and kind of tying their technology roadmap to that, coming up with some futuristic personas and looking into the future using synthetic data driven by AI tools. What's then the mechanism and process to keep that going through the organization over the next 5 years to hit their very aggressive revenue targets?
Yeah.
You know, so how do we set up a customer testing framework, a hypotheses-led framework where we can be very quickly testing ideas and new products and services and stuff like that? So, yeah, as I said, I just think it's probably the most exciting time in history to be an experience designer.
I agree. The thing to that is from I mean, I come from an innovation background. The key part of that is you design something that is in a time where everything is changing or a lot of things are changing. You can only work with hypotheses to understand what are the possibilities. If you don't do this, you just keep on doing what you have been doing over the last decades, and that's most probably not going to work.
Yeah.
So give you an example. I think it was 2010, 2012 in IKEA, we did like future workshops where we looked years and years ahead, and then we mapped out different scenarios. What if this happens? And at that time, even we talked about what if we have all like autonomous driving cars, and that, I mean, that's now ages ago. And we talked about that and what could be the business model for IKEA at that time.
Yeah.
And I think this questions every organization need to look into. If AI is happening and this kind of things are happening in our industry and that behaviors are going to change, what does it mean for our business model? Is that business model still there working? Are our products or services still working? And then you need to redesign. And you can only do that with different scenarios. And like using you or someone who is helping you to do that, because a lot of organizations, especially in the more conservative industries, they're not used to that.
No, you're totally right. I mean, you look at pharma; they're so far behind, right? So far behind. This is why, like, I mean, you know, yeah, this is why everyone complains about going to the. I was speaking to someone this morning, and I'm complaining about going to the doctor because I had to fill in this form and that form and whatever, and it's like. It's so far behind. This is why I come back to it's the biggest, lowest hanging fruit, and we have to be thinking differently. And I think, and I think for me, like I think I know there's a lot of people out there who are really worried about AI. I mean, I'm so obsessed and excited by it, and I think what I try and tell my clients is like, you know, just come back to the people. That like again, human-centered design. That's why it's such a kind of a beautiful practice in a way, because it's just coming back to people. It's always coming back to people, their behaviors, what they need, whether that's employees, patients, whoever. You know, that's the principle that kind of drives it. And so while the world still has people living on it, you know, I feel like hopefully we're always going to be in work, right, Jens?
Yeah, I agree.
Human innovation, human-centered design, it always comes back to that.
If you look into the future, where do you see your business going? Over the next, let's say, if we meet again in 2 years from now, in the best case, where is it?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm so sort of here and now with
I
it a
know.
little bit, just starting out. I mean, I think for me, you know, the bigger and juicier and more important the challenge, the better. Like, that's just the work that I naturally sort of go after. I don't know why, Jens. I really am just really believe that this way of working can make a difference. I'm probably like a bit crazy. Maybe that's a good thing. Don't they say that the craziest people are the only ones who can save the world?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be kind of getting back to that more multi-continent sort of work around, climate change, eradicating malaria, you know, global healthcare challenges on a huge scale. That type of work is hard work, you know, and so it's just about building the foundations of Design 4 to be robust enough to go after that work and deliver outcomes in that way, I think is where, you know, so I'll probably be like in the depths of Rwanda or something in 2 years, And so you guys can come and visit me. And
we can do a podcast
do a
in
podcast,
Rwanda.
exactly. Well, I was just there, as you know, so I've really I love that country.
So from your home-based perspective, are you going to be in the UK still? I mean, we're recording this in London now. What is your perspective from a vision like, do you want to build something that's global from the get-go? Do you want to focus more on Europe? What's your vision on that?
I'm like, has my mum sent you that question?
Wait.
I mean, you know, all the work I've done for the last 10 years has been global. It is global. I mean, it is definitely global from the get-go. As you know, I do a lot of work in healthcare, a lot of work in pharma. They are global organizations. So I already see it as a global thing. I feel like London is the capital of the world, so it's a good place to be for now, geographically. But there's, definitely global. You know, I started my career in Australia. We still have a lot of big challenges in Australia. You know, I've done a lot of work with Indigenous communities there. They have the worst health outcomes out of any community in the world. I still feel like there's a lot of work to be done in Australia in that space. And obviously that's my home, and I'll probably end up there one day. But I think for now, being a little bit more central is kind of, for me in the business, kind of where I need to be.
So if we have a listener that would love to reach out to you, what are the best ways to connect to you?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Cara Prosser. You can come to my website, and some of the stories I've been sharing with you today, those case studies are on the website. So it's design4.uk. So design and then 4, F-O-R. So design for people, business, all that kind of stuff. So design4.uk. So you can write me an email from the website, or my email is hello@design4.uk. So lots of different ways you can contact me. And very excited to kind of, you know, work with lots of different businesses over the next, you know, couple of decades.
Years.
Yeah, exactly.
I will definitely follow you as always, and we stay in touch, and we will record another episode in 2 years and see where we are with the businesses. Thank you very much for the conversation. It was amazing to meet you again.
Yes, you too. Thanks for having me.